At BMO Insurance, customer experience is a promise. A promise we back with clear, measurable service level agreements. In the last year, our teams supporting you have driven real results. Now, progress sets the pace. Smart app submissions reach underwriting within 1 day of submission, and 99% processed within our service level agreements. Policy settlement within 2 days, and claims completed within 10 days. We know time is valuable. That's why our new business team routinely answers phone calls within 1 minute and provides email responses within 24 hours. Because when SLAs deliver, your business accelerates. We've redefined what fast and reliable service looks like, empowering advisors with the tools to drive business forward. Service level agreements aren't just targets, they're a commitment to our advisors. And at BMO Insurance, we're raising the standard.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our LifeFWD webinar series. I'm Gregory Young, Vice President, Business Development at BMO Insurance, and I'm excited to have advisors from across the country joining us today for a conversation that is becoming increasingly important in today's digital-first world. From building credibility and strengthening client relationships to staying visible in a competitive market, platforms like LinkedIn are changing how advisors connect, engage, and grow their business. Today's session is focused on practical ways advisors can build an authentic digital presence that supports both relationship building and long-term business growth. I'm pleased to be joined by Jay Routens, Senior Manager, Head of Large Customer Sales at LinkedIn Canada, who will share actionable insights, best practices, and real-world strategies advisors can start applying right away. Good afternoon, and thank you, Jay, for joining us. A pleasure to meet you.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining LifeFWD, a series for advisors. And today we're here in the LinkedIn offices in Toronto. So excited to learn from LinkedIn the experience you have working in the market and how it impacts advisors and how advisors are using you, and LinkedIn in the current reality of social media and how that impacts their business. So I'm going to jump right into a couple of questions.
Let's go for it.
So the digital presence has become an essential part of building a successful business and professional relationships today. How do you see that in building your business?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, no longer is it a world where you're meeting somebody for the first time in a room, right? You're having an opportunity to have an upcoming meeting to meet a potential customer, but you're doing research about them before you have that first connection. And so whether you call it a preconceived notion or pre-planted information, people have an opportunity to get a baseline that's going to up-level that conversation. And so whether you're an advisor or just an individual who's coming to the platform, it's a matter of saying, hey, if somebody is searching me out, are they going to have the right information in order to move forward that conversation? And LinkedIn is a place where people are, getting as much information about their personal lives and professional lives that is going to move forward that business conversation.
I'll never forget many years ago when I first got introduced to LinkedIn. I think the most common thing I used it for, and that's not what people use it for today, is to make sure when I meet them for the first time, I know what they look like.
Totally.
And so when I go into that coffee shop, I see and I can say, okay, that's the person I'm meeting. So it was a lifesaver many times, but I know it's evolved way more from that. So, with that, what types of content is resonating with advisors, and the professional market to build that credibility?
Yeah.
What do you see is happening on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think there's two things that are really important on the platform right now. Number one is people are really good at figuring out what is authentic. And so when we look at content, which we'll call like an original post, we're seeing double-digit growth on those pieces of content year over year, which means like It's not AI slop. It's not generated by other platforms or other people. It's something that's coming from a first party point of view. Really important. And people on LinkedIn are really good at sniffing that out. The second thing, and this is not necessarily 100% specific to LinkedIn, but the form it takes on LinkedIn is really interesting, is video is the king. And, individuals, even people who are advisors, people who are running kind of, let's call it small businesses or autonomous businesses within a larger corporation, are using video to move forward their business because it's the way people are consuming information now.
It's so funny you say that with regards to the consumer can identify. It's so easy. You can see the trends. When something becomes, this instant trend, you see it time after time. I'm scrolling down LinkedIn and I'm seeing the video, and recently it was the caricatures. People were creating their own caricatures.
Yes.
And then it was like, literally, I'm zooming down, there's one, there's another, there's another, there's another, there's another. I think we're already past that because they appear so quick, and then they disappear so quick.
Well, I mean, LinkedIn is still a social platform, so trends come and go just like any other place on the internet, which is great because it keeps the conversation evolving on the platform.
And those videos, I know a few advisors who are producing videos where it's a combination of AI and themselves, which I think is good. That AI builds that background and then they superimpose themselves talking. What types of videos, just playing on the comment you made, what types of videos do you think resonates most with the consumer?
Yeah, totally. I mean, to talk about AI for a second, AI is, the way I think about it, is it's the assistant. It helps you show up and become prepared to take part in a conversation or to take part in a video that you're creating. It's not the actual creation of the asset itself. So I think that's important. Everybody should be using it, and if you're not using it, you're falling behind. In terms of what kind of video works, you can talk about it like high-res video. This setting is a high-res video setting, right? There's production, there's a lot that goes into it. But low-res is just as important on the platform. It's actually funny, LinkedIn executives are really good at this. These walking to video type styles of video content that are coming up on the platform are really great because they're short, bite-sized pieces of information that actually do relay quite a lot of information. And that informal setting actually allows people to lean in a little bit more because we can't be, headshot Jay all the time. We're all individuals outside of our work lives, and that authenticity comes through in those micro moments.
What would you say for someone who wants to put on video content? Like what is considered short?
Yeah.
Like what is that threshold that they passed? Too long, I've moved on.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would say like 15 to 30 seconds is considered short. You go past a minute into 2 minutes, that's a lot of content to sit through. And you have to think about it as individuals, right? We're all, whether it's on LinkedIn, other social platforms, news outlets, we're exposed to like hundreds of pieces of information and different types of social commentary every day. So that 15 to 30 seconds is really great, especially if you're getting in front of audiences for the first time. If people don't know you, don't know your brand, those short snippets of information are going to be more likely to be consumed. And then once they know you, your personal brand, then you can start adding in those longer form content.
Is there, I think about when I go on social media, whatever drives the algorithm, different platforms, different algorithms. With regards to LinkedIn, how does someone attract more when they're thinking of a video content? What does that content look like that will drive that algorithm so more people see that content? What are you seeing as kind of the growth for content?
I think like the authenticity kind of component is key. I'll keep coming back to that just because people sniff through it so easily. But at the end of the day, what's really interesting, actually, a lot of people don't know this about LinkedIn. We're almost like a publisher now in the context of we have so much news commentary that's happening on the platform. LinkedIn has over 200 editorial staff. We have editorial in over 20 countries and in multiple different languages. What that means is that the news cycle is happening on LinkedIn, and that's actually very intentionally being curated. And people who are able to align with that news cycle to talk about what's going on in their industry or their vertical, whether that be through a static piece of content or through video, that's what's going to do really well because everything's moving so quickly. And so somebody who's able to prove that they can stay on top of the trends, that they know what's going on right now and how that impacts the end consumer, that's what's going to go viral.
I think of my own LinkedIn channel, and when I scroll through it, it's insurance, and more insurance.
Yep.
But for those insurance advisors who want to be more active, who want to grow their business, what is some of the missed opportunities? Because if you're sheltered in your own world, you're not seeing outside of that world. So what are some of the missed opportunities you could identify for those insurance advisors or even, some of our brokerage partners, what could they be doing or that they're not witnessing because they're in their own,
In the
silo?
bubble. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, what you said is like my LinkedIn feed is LinkedIn, right? It's because your feed is what you make of it in the
Hmm.
context of who you're following. So, at the end of the day, it's, are you following the right companies? So who are your customers working for? Are there particular, you might be selling a consumer insurance product, but are there particular companies that a lot of your customers are coming from? What's happening in those companies? That's really important. Are you following your competitors to see how your competitors are going to market? That's really helpful information to be able to stay on top of how to be a strong seller. Are you following the leaders in the space, other executives? And what type of demographics are the people that you're following? For example, if your entire network is people who you work with and people who you maybe went to school with, are those really going to be the people that you're selling to? And you have to really intentionally be following and connecting with people who are going to be your customers, because if you're not actually gaining that competitive edge in terms of being able to, let's say, research them. And that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is people are doing their research and they have more information in that first conversation than they ever have before.
Right. So I'm trying to grow my business.
Yep.
I'm trying to be better at LinkedIn. I'm trying to get more likes. I'm trying to, get more visibility.
Yep.
If I only had 15 minutes a day, what should I be spending that time on LinkedIn doing
Yeah.
to grow that visibility, to grow my brand?
It sounds a little tacky, but I'm going to go with it. We'll call it the 3 C's. I think number one is consume. That goes back to what I said about LinkedIn being part of the news cycle. You need to be making sure that you're getting the right information to be able to inform your talk track as an advisor, to be able to inform what your customers care about. Number two would be connect, which is connecting with the right individuals. So, we can have a whole conversation about how to connect the right way on LinkedIn, but are you spending time investing and getting in front of the right people and making sure that those are warm introductions or warm points of entry so that you're an advisor reaching out? People know, hey, why should I listen to you? Why should I actually choose to connect with you? And the last one would be create, which is, am I taking the steps to actually have a voice on the platform? And that could be resharing the great content that BMO is producing. It could be crafting that original kind of content that is that first party point of view. It could be resharing content from other people who are really strong voices in the industry. But spending, let's say, 5 minutes doing each of those to start your day is a great way to get a supercharge on what your audience will actually be able to get out of you.
So Jay, we got consume, create, and what was that third one again? And connect. What about consistency?
Yep.
Because I wonder sometimes, some advisors are way more consistent with their posting.
Totally.
From your viewpoint, what drives the success with consistency? Is it once a day, once a week, once a month? And where is that threshold that it goes too much?
Totally.
Where you might be consuming someone's page.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, too much really only comes at a point in time when you're not adding in a new commentary. It's kind of rinse and repeat. So
Right.
that's the dangerous part of saying, hey, am I a broken record? in this space when there's so much information to be consumed, being a broken record is the kiss of death. But consistency at the end of the day, I really think about it actually doesn't matter if it's once a day or once every 2 weeks. It's actually the consistency in the frequency. So, if I have 1,000 followers or 5,000 followers on LinkedIn and they get used to a certain cadence, which is, hey, I'm going to hear from Jay once every 2 weeks. Staying consistent to that is really important because then people will look forward to that. But it's when you get into that kind of dangerous territory of I'm going to post, 3 times in 1 week and then you're not going to hear from me for 3 months, that's when it becomes a problem. And so, for folks who are really getting started on the platform, I would think about it as a crawl, walk, run, right? Which is make goals for yourself. Say, hey, as I'm getting started, I'm going to aim for once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, because that's a comfortable place to be. And then as you get more comfortable and confident, that's when you can say, hey, I'm going to increase the frequency and the cadence at which I'm doing this, because you know that you can stay fresh and that you can follow through on that consistency.
It's so true. I think about something a little different, but when you sign up, you give your email address, whether it's a retail store or someone you follow, and then you get one email, and then 6 months goes by, you get another email. It's like, oh, right.
Did I sign up for that?
Yeah, I signed up for that.
Exactly.
Right. And why did it take them so long to reach out to me? That's kind of bizarre. And then I quickly go in and cancel that subscription. But if you're trying to build the best brand and you're trying to build your personal brand on LinkedIn, what are some of those key elements that someone should be intentional with to build that brand?
Yeah. It's funny because you talked about at the beginning of saying, hey, you used to use LinkedIn only to see what somebody looked like before meeting them in
Yep.
person. Having an up-to-date picture is actually really important. We get twice the number of connection requests when you have a photo. You get a great response rate when you have an up-to-date photo. That's like kind of the leading indicator.
So I'm going to jump in for a
Yeah,
second
go for it.
because I'm curious. Does the picture have to be the traditional headshot,
No.
or can it be, I think we've gone through phases over
Yes.
LinkedIn where it was the professional headshot, then it became, you out and about with your family or maybe in nature. Now I've seen a ton of AI photos, right? Where I look at it and go, is that the same person? Because AI's made them look way more attractive or strong or whatever the verb we want to use. But what's the key to that picture, do you think?
Yeah, I would say definitely no AI photos. Have it be your genuine, authentic self. But I think a more relaxed kind of formula where it's actually showing a little bit about who you are, showing some of that personality. It doesn't have to be rigid in front of that white backdrop. Equally, should you have a photo where it's you and your entire family? Probably not, right? It is a happy balance of who you are outside of work, but what that kind of professionalism you're bringing to the table is. So photo, super important. What's really interesting about LinkedIn these days is that it's not a 2D resume, right? LinkedIn is a 360-degree perspective of who you are. So, you have an opportunity with your headline to say, hey, here's, 5 to 10 words that represent who I am. They get people to lean in a little bit. But from there, your profile actually can have, we've talked about video, it can have video, it can have examples of customer stories, of work you've done in the past. It's a living and breathing kind of portfolio of the work that you are doing and that you're capable of. And that is, again, back to that research piece. The more information you have, that's not, hey, this is my job title and this is what I do in my day to day. The more that people can derive that value, that's where you're going to get the best engagement on your platform.
From a profile update / optimization, what are some of the biggest impact advisors can make to their profile to grow that?
Yeah, so it would be the photo, the headline. You have an about section. We talked about, is it professional? Is it non-professional? We don't do the third-party voices anymore. It's really, who am I? What am I bringing to the table? Why should you be willing to connect with me or have a conversation with me? And then from there, you have an opportunity to spotlight different pieces of content. We've talked about the crawl, walk, run, but as you really are starting to get that voice, and let's say you're starting to produce some really strong video content, highlighting that content, because it's going to be something people see really early on as they're scrolling through your profile, highlighting the content that is getting the most engagement or driving the most value for your customers or your consumers, spotlighting it there is really going to get people to lean in and help build that personal brand.
How important would you say it is to go beyond just your professional career? Because I know there's some opportunities, I forget the exact name of the section, but I've got, I was my son's baseball coach and I was that, and I did this and I volunteered here. How important is that to show that side?
Yeah. Skills, education, volunteer experience, even breaks from work have been something that folks are highlighting recently. I think it's really important. At the end of the day, we actually have some really great data here that shows doing a hard sales pitch on your first outreach is going to lower your success rate pretty consistently or pretty considerably. At the end of the day, people want to connect with another human being. And so all of those pieces of information, whether it's your volunteer experience or something that you're passionate about, for me personally, I'm really passionate about the ERG ecosystem and the employee resource group space. That's something that as I connect with people, I say, oh, they have volunteer experience, supporting different groups of their companies. I actually want to talk to them about that. So it creates this kind of humanness to that approach. And if you say, hey, I see you volunteered for the SPCA, that's a point of connection that you can actually have a place of unification or a place to say, hey, we have something shared outside of the fact that I'm selling you a product. So I'd say the more you have on the profile, the more people can be like, hey, this is somebody that I actually might have something in common with and I'd want to talk to them about.
It goes back to that, you've mentioned a few times that authenticity.
Yep.
Be authentic, be yourself, let them see who you are, because you're going to connect with, most of the public in some different way.
For sure.
And that authenticity is important. So, how should professionals approach, direct outreach or networking messages in a way that feels, genuine?
Yeah. Absolutely. Kind of just touched on it, but people who are actually putting in a piece of information that is about that individual, saying, hey, we have so and so in common, or actually being really straightforward, saying, this is the reason that I'm looking to connect with you. The ability to get a response from that is, over 2 times as high. So it's really about leading with that humanness, that, human connection first. I think another thing that's really, really important is showing that you've done your research, right? So whether it's the company that that individual works for, whether it's the job they're in, those are all leading indicators of what products or services they might need, right? So it's not say, hey, I'd love to connect because, I'm an advisor selling so and so. It's saying, hey, I have a specific purpose, a specific need, and a specific gap to fill that you might not have otherwise, really been considering, or have had, that mental space for understanding why that connection is important.
On that note, so from a if you're trying to build that profile, and I think that's what all comes down to. Everyone's trying to build that profile,
Yep.
get more connections, get more views, so on and so forth. What are some of the skills or habits that will become increasingly important for professionals to be online and to have success
Yep.
on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I'd say one thing is, like, LinkedIn is definitely not the place where it's volume over quantity or quality. It's definitely quality over quantity. We talked about it earlier. Your news feed, your profile, it is all becoming what you make of it. And if you're adding everybody, if you're really kind of have a spray and pray approach of saying, I'm going to connect with anyone and everyone, you're not going to find the value. And as any good sales professional knows, your kind of prospecting strategy, the work that you're doing in terms of who you're looking to do business with, has to be oriented and targeted. So I'd say first and foremost, be really specific with who you're connecting with. Just wanted to call that out. But in terms of skills for the future, I do think it comes back to a lot of what we've talked about. Are you leveraging AI as your assistant? Are you making sure that you're leveraging it to make your work more impactful, more efficient? Are you able to get through more in a day? Super important. AI is one of our top growing skills on the platform, and that's across all sectors, including insurance. But number two is, are you thinking through and planning your business with cycles in mind, right? We talked about consistency of content. Do you have certain goals or quotas or volume targets that you're looking to meet in certain periods of the year? If that's the case, people who are planning for the content that they're producing, if they're planning what they want to be talking about, or if there's certain times when other advisors will be more active on the platform, how are you planning to get in front of that so that your voice doesn't get lost in the clutter, that you're staying on top of the pile?
Yeah, it's funny. It's when I go through, the feed, and I see you're going through image, 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 and then all of a sudden, what always catches my attention, and this is probably not the right thing that should be catching my attention, is when I don't see an image or I don't see a video, and I pause for a moment because I'm confused. I'm
Yeah.
like, did they not put an image or a video? And so I click on the more
Yeah.
to see, is there something hidden I'm not
Yeah.
seeing?
Yeah.
But from a content creation, putting just words versus video picture,
Hmm.
what's the downside to just going with words? Because I click on it because I'm just curious. I
Yeah.
don't know if everyone's doing the same thing that I'm doing, just clicking on it to see what's behind there. Is there something I'm missing? Or do most people just scroll through that?
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
I'm
great
curious.
question. I think at the end of the day, having uh, a, a kind of different volume of content is really important, or keeping it fresh is really important. So that means not having the same consistent approach every time. That whole idea of not having an image or a video and it stopping you in your tracks is actually a good thing, because it's making you pause and say,
Hmm.
"Hey, is this something that I should be leading into?" Folks who are saying, hey, I'm going to have my own, videos with my own fresh perspectives as part of my kind of social commentary. That's great. People who are also layering and reposting content from, Bank of Montreal or different banks, that's great. People who are spending time, reposting voices or actually adding in commentary on different pieces of content is really important. Digital citizenship is something that we talk about a lot on our platform, which means that, hey, we've got you, or your network, posting a lot of content. If you're just a passive reader, you're not liking, you're not
Hmm.
commenting, you're not resharing, it's kind of like scratch my back, you scratch, or I scratch your back, you scratch mine, which means that if you want people to be engaging, you need to be spending that time investing in doing that as well. So really variety is the name of the game is what I'm getting at, which is try different types of content, try engaging in different ways, and really making sure that your name is popping up in a variety of different capacities on the platform.
At BMO Insurance, we're going through an evolution right now. Things are changing. We're moving at such pace. Whether it's our products, our pricing, behind the scenes, there's so much going on. New people, new systems,
Yep.
and we think about this evolution all the time. And from a LinkedIn perspective, where do you see the evolution of LinkedIn? Like, I feel like it has changed over the last 15, 20 years that, maybe not 20, because, I don't think it's been around for 20,
It
but
has.
it
Yeah.
hasn't been
Yeah, it
around for
has.
20.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I'm wrong. So it's been around for 20 years, but it's evolving, right? Where
Mhm.
do you see that next evolution for LinkedIn
Yeah.
with regards to maybe the advisor community?
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is people are coming to the platform younger and earlier than they ever have before. 16 is our age of entry. It's really interesting because individuals are starting to build that online, you know, professional
Right,
version of
right.
themselves earlier than ever before. What is their experience coming out of high school? How are they leveraging it to prepare to get into university? That means that younger individuals are building relationships with brands earlier than they ever have before. So that means is that for advisors, let's say someone is joining when they're 16, they're not going to consider an insurance product until they're, 21, 22 years old when they're out of school. But advisors have an opportunity to build up a brand, a reputation. That part of LinkedIn is not going away. I think it's actually incredible to see. I've been here for almost 10 years. The platform's over 2 decades old. Our member base is still consistently growing. We have over 1 billion members in Canada. We're over 31 million members. And that rate of increase, I think it's, one new individual is added to the platform every couple of seconds. We can fact check that afterwards. But at the end of the day, LinkedIn has done an amazing job of what we call our members first mindset, which means that we know that our platform doesn't have any value if people are not coming to have a positive experience on the platform. And the work that we're doing in terms of driving engagement with video and different types of content is keeping people coming back for more. So I'd say it's more understanding what is keeping our folks engaged. It's more news content. It's more staying on top of the trends. Without being too long-winded, one of the things that I think is really interesting now with our platform is that we have executives who are actually coming to LinkedIn to break news about their positions, the work they're doing in their companies, career changes that they're making before it's actually coming to news outlets, which is really interesting. So the context that our platform has in the current kind of, professional and macroeconomic climate, I think will continue to rise and play a more and more critical role to businesses and people.
You mentioned the 30 plus million
Hmm.
Canadians, which, depending on where that official total Canadian stat lands, 40 plus million, you realize, over 2/3 of Canadians are on the
Yep.
platform. I know it's an important platform for us at BMO Insurance.
Hmm.
We launch a lot of ideas, we launch a lot of new products, we launch a lot on there, and it's super important. But for an advisor, what would be something you can say to an advisor to take away from this conversation? What they could, implement into their business tomorrow
Yep.
to be more effective, to be more visible? What's that one thing you could tell an advisor to do?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I would say like, don't wait. Getting started. The first thing that's the easiest one to do is just make sure the right information about you is present on the internet, right? It's like, I think the great thing about LinkedIn is it's all first party data. It's all information that you're able to provide. And if it's something that's going to be moving forward your business, make sure it's up to date. That's something you can do in a half an hour. You don't have to wait. The other things that we talked about in terms of those 3 C's, in terms of, consume, connect, and create, that idea of consume is also something that you can start doing right away. If you haven't taken the time to follow new companies, to follow new executives, to see, who's top voice in the insurance industry right now, that's something that will shape your feed. And if you wake up, you look at LinkedIn every morning, the more you create it, the more you curate it, the more valuable that information will be to you. So I would say those are the two must-haves in terms of what you don't have to wait to do. The idea of building connections and kind of creating content is something that you can work towards as you're consuming it, because you're saying, hey, what's working? What do I engage with? What do I want to emanate and kind of repeat based on what other folks are doing on the platform?
This has been a great conversation, Jay. I really appreciate the insights. I know our advisors, it's such an important platform for our advisors. I know it's the only social media platform that I'm on and ever have been on. And it's somewhere where, you grow in the community. The more you put into it, the more you're authentic, as you mentioned, the better you'll be. So this has been fantastic. So thank you so
Likewise.
much
It's
for the
great to meet you.
opportunity, and I'll see you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.